Penguins complete a season sweep of the Flyers, scoring 5 goals in each of their 4 wins. They're 4-0. Flyers, though, are a young team. If they get some goaltending, but that's a big if. It's been that way. So let's talk about the Penguins. We'll start with this. Andrew Fillipponi, start with you on it. And that is they gave up 45 shots on goal again today. Just overall, their play, they've been very loosey-goosey. Yeah. Watching some of the last couple of games, they're lucky that they didn't lose those games because of the way they've been playing.
Bob, I think that, they should be able to flip the switch. The excuse that they're bored, I don't buy that. I've heard that made a few times. I've even said it. But right now for me, the season's going to hinge on Letang. And I know last year they won a cup without him, but they don't have the defensive depth to do it again. And he's so up and down right now. If this is how he plays as a #1 defenseman in the playoffs, I can guarantee you they won't go deep. He's got to get his game right more than anybody else right now. I mean, interestingly, Mike Sullivan today kind of basically said, hey, my guys aren't doing enough to try to block shots. However, at the game today, you look at Philly's first 2 goals. First, Kessel and then Gino could not be bothered to back check. Yeah, you're right. The Flyers guy that was literally coming down the slot, lining up for shots both times. I mean, Phil, if it was a hot dog, he would have gotten it. It wasn't a hot dog. He couldn't be bothered. Does that mean that, look, and I say this every time, they deserve the benefit of the doubt. They do. However, there are some holes in their game that I think, Mike would, over the next 2 weeks, you got to get it closed up before you get to the playoffs.
I think the thing is, it's a good thing they score a lot of goals. It's a good thing they've got the offense they do, because I don't think this is their board. I think that they're not very good defensively. They can get a little better. Chris Letang can play better, but they're not very good in their own end with the puck. They're a little bit undersized at times. I just think that this is who they are, and that doesn't mean they can't win in the playoffs, but I think it's going to be really hard to win in the playoffs with the way they play defense right now.
All right, let's talk about likely teams that could give them a problem. We saw New Jersey do what they do, and they've had their number, just as the Penguins have had Philadelphia's number. Within the division, I guess we should start there, because if you get to the other division, you go into the Eastern Conference Final. But, Will, which of these teams do you think could really give the Penguins their money's worth? Well,
I mean, to be honest, I don't think there's any easy outs. I don't think there's anybody in that division where you look at it and go, all right, well, you can just advance the Pens through the next round. Not even Philly? Even the Flyers. Philly. I mean, the way they played today, I mean, they were fresh today. And Matt Murray was also not fabulous. I mean, he was busy, but he wasn't fabulous. I mean, I don't think there's any easy outs unless, I mean, the irony here is I think if they played the Caps, and they obviously probably won't in the first round, Caps going to win the division, looks like. I think the mental edge they have over the Caps is so great that the Caps would fold immediately. But everybody else, I mean, everybody wants a shot at them, and they don't look as dominant as they did going in last year or the year before.
I would say that the Capitals and Columbus both have the problem that their goaltender just can't seem to handle the Penguins. So I think those 2 series, I wouldn't really worry that much about the Penguins. I think the Flyers aren't ready. The Devils could be very interesting. I know they're sort of the flavor of the month, and that's a team everyone sort of says is going to beat the Penguins. I don't know that they're ready to beat the Penguins 4 times in 7 games. So to me, I would say probably not till the Eastern Conference Final.
Because think about what you just said there, Paul. That would mean New Jersey would either have to beat the Penguins this season in 7 out of 11 or 8 out of 11 games, because they've already beaten them 3 times, and I just don't see that happening. But if forced to rank, Bob, I would have to put New Jersey first, just because Philadelphia's goaltending situation, even with Elliott coming back in the last week of the season, I don't think will remedy things. And to Paul's point, I think Bobrovsky sees the Penguins in his dreams. I think he wakes up in a cold sweat knowing that he can't beat them. And I don't buy Grubauer if he somehow beats out Holtby as being the difference maker for D.C.
I mean, and we get worked up about the Devils. By the way, even with that win the other night since the All-Star break,
they're not
they're 14-12. They're 14-12 since the All-Star break. They just happen to play good against the Penguins. So we go, oh my God, they're really good. I mean, they're okay. They're not horrible anymore.
But they can keep up with
the thing is, it's a matchup thing with the Penguins. Right. They're a team that can actually skate with the Penguins a little. And so, I mean, I understand why people think it's a bad matchup, but I just don't think they're ready to beat the Penguins.
Is Boston to watch out for. Although Tampa Bay, they lost to New Jersey last night, big 2 back-to-back wins. And watch for Keith Kincaid. It's still going to come down to whoever goaltender is the best. He's been really good for them. And Schneider's back, but they've been deferring to Keith Kincaid, so we'll see how it goes. Penguins now in action on the road this week, beginning Tuesday night in Detroit. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Pirates, who are in action for real. Yeah, they're going to play a game that counts starting on Thursday. Prognostications about the Pirates and bold predictions are next, right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown.